Sierra has all the best active and outdoor brands you need. From athletic stuff, like a full court pickup game, swish, to athlete-ish stuff, like a half-mile stroll. Get those steps in. And for morning hikes up the mountain trail, good pace. To nighttime ghost stories from the camping chair. What a twist. Whatever level of active, Sierra loves it all. Head to Sierra or Sierra.com for the brands you want at the prices that let you do it all. From athletic to athlete-ish, Sierra's got it.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Last Show with David Cooper, where we utilize non-linear reverse, inverse, backward thinking protocols. It sounds like this.
Tenure decisions, what person gets what job at a university. They can define someone's academic career, and they're often assumed to be purely merit-based. But there's a new study that suggests how these decisions are evaluated, like side-by-side comparison versus one-by-one, may decide whose career advances and whose doesn't. I'm here with someone who's worked on that study. She is a psychology professor at the University of California, Merced, and her name is Christiana Spitzmuller. Christiana, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
When I imagine how tenure decisions are made at universities, I kind of picture a room full of very serious professors weighing candidates on their merit. What does your research say about this process? And does it say it doesn't quite look like that in practice?
Well, I think in part you're right. It is usually rooms full of professors looking quite seriously, sifting either over electronic records or paper records that describe someone's case. So how it usually works, a university compiles a pretty large body of evidence, that is supposed to determine whether someone is deserving of having basically a lifetime appointment, which is what tenure is, or whether they have to pick up their life and completely start over somewhere else or have a complete change in career. So it's a very high stakes decision both for the university and for the person, obviously. So they look at all these materials, and that is what we look at in our research. Is it really truly merit based, or are there factors that creep into this process that are political, that are not related to how great of a scholar, teacher, or contributor to your community you are, but that are extraneous and that really shouldn't matter. And what our research shows is that those factors indeed do play a pretty significant role.
So let's zoom into those factors because they sort of go against the narrative that this is a neutral process. I suppose racial discrimination can exist there, or racial factors can end up where we probably wouldn't want them to.
I wouldn't necessarily think of it as racial discrimination. I do think that most people in the academy are well-intentioned human beings. Okay, the well-intentioned is that I don't think anybody, or it's very rare that people intentionally bring any bias to the plate. However, they are, well-intentioned human beings. And the human beings part means that there are shortcuts that our brains use to make decisions. Decision-making heuristics is what they are oftentimes called. And we use those as shortcuts to come to outcomes and decision-making processes. And those play a role in the tenure decision-making process, just like they do in other life situations.
So what did earlier research show about certain, racial groups being compared, let's say, to other ones?
Yeah, so we have a research program around this. Okay, we're so interested in it. We've been doing this for about 10 years, and we've collected data from about 12 universities now. So there's over 2,000 cases of professors who saw promotion, including, the recommendation or external review letter. So it's a ton of data. And what we indeed see see is that the deck is somewhat stacked against Black and Hispanic faculty. So with similar research accomplishments, like similar number of other papers that cite your work, a similar number of publications, there is a lower likelihood of being extended the benefit of the doubt when your record is sort of, a little bit borderline for Hispanic and Black faculty than there is for white and Asian faculty. So for white and Asian faculty, the benefit of the doubt usually carries the day, while that is not extended, especially to women of color.
Now, the thing you mentioned, that most professors go in well-intentioned, not intending to make these biased decisions, but the process ends up creating these biased decisions. You've got kind of a fascinating solution. Rather than admonishing people and saying, be less biased, you can kind of change the environment in which these decisions are made. I'm so interested in that. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, I think that is really a goal of our research. We know from so many studies that the part you're mentioning, David, the admonishing people, it really doesn't result in change, okay? It makes people feel bad and it doesn't affect the outcome. But we also know from a body of decision-making research that that sort of the postdoc on our team, that's sort of his disciplinary origin, that shows that through really small changes to a decision-making environment, you can achieve more equity and a deeper engagement with the content of a decision than you may be in other ways. So what we are doing in our work is we're applying some of those principles that come out of the judgment and decision-making research literature and apply those here. So specifically what that means here is we use something that's called a decision-making nudge, okay? A nudge is something where you make a tiny tweak to, how people look at something, and then they're able to look at it in more depth or look at it a little bit differently. So in the case of promotion and tenure decisions, what we look at is we look at whether candidates were individually evaluated. So, if you were going up for a promotion, you were the only person in your department going up that year and you were individually evaluated. Another scenario is that there are other people who were maybe hired at the same time and you're all evaluated, at the same time. So that's what we refer to as joint evaluations. And what we're seeing in our data is that in the case where you use these joint evaluation scenarios where multiple people are evaluated at the same time, that there is sort of there's more realistic comparisons that are made, and faculty of color, Hispanic and Black faculty fare much better in the circumstances where they're directly compared to someone else.
What is going on psychologically here with the sort of one-by-one or individual comparison or the side-by-side? Why does it produce fairer results?
That is a great question. So there are several things that probably happen. So there is a body of research, again, that talks about criterion shift. Criterion shift is something that often happens, when happens to faculty members or employees of color, where sometimes the standard gets elevated. So in the case of promotion and tenure, I can tell you of examples, anecdotally about individuals, where a Black faculty member sought promotion in the English department, okay? And there had been for several years in a row, the people who went up for promotion were promoted with a book contract in hand, okay, saying, well, the book is coming, I have the contract, it's almost done, okay? And the committee bought that and believed it and signed off on a positive tenure decision. So now the Black English professor, seeks promotion, and the committee says, we really need to touch that book. We need to see that book physically, okay, to believe that it's going to happen. So that criterion shift, we believe, can be mitigated through these joint evaluations, because it forces us in our decision making to calibrate how we look at an individual's case, and it forces us to see the other cases. So if you do that simultaneously, we're as human beings better at holding ourselves accountable.
No, it's a good example that really underlines this like the whole basis of what we're talking about. things like mandatory debias training, things like this, they sometimes get backlash in the academic community. How can a positive thing like this, like a small structural nudge to change the way people are evaluated, how can we implement this? I'm fully bought on.
No, that's a great question. Yes, I agree. I mean, there is often backlash, to these trainings where people just really feel bad. Okay, and sometimes there's even trainings about implicit bias where the research literature is actually a little mixed as to how that works. So this is a very viable intervention. So you can even compare to other scenarios.
Well, Christiana Spitzmuller is a psychology professor at the University of California, Merced. Christiana, I've enjoyed this chat. Thanks for going over your research with me and to having this discussion.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Hello there.
Thursdays on Global.
I'm Madeline Matlock.
She's the lawyer with the legendary name.
Don't underestimate Miss Matlock. This woman's a shark.
You know it, baby.
The one you can trust, even if she has to bend the rules.
Things aren't always as black and white as they seem.
To crack a case.
This is how I get things done.
Emmy-winning actress Kathy Bates is Matlock. All new Thursdays at 9 Eastern on Global. Stream on Stack TV.